Hey everyone, and welcome to our AZ Digital Nomad channel. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Courtney.
And we have been traveling around the US for 2 years while renting out our house in Arizona. We're both remote workers and have been asked many times how we juggle work and travel, how we find places to stay, how we manage to pack our lives in an SUV, what our work setup looks like, our favorite places, and so forth. So in this first intro video, we will give you a brief history of how we started, and we'll discuss how we find places to live every few months.
So we originally talked about digital nomading 10 to 20 years in the future and potentially traveling to some international destinations. There's so much information about international digital nomading to be found, like travel visas and more recently, nomad visas. And then the opportunity came up and suddenly our 10 to 20 year plan became more of a 3-month plan. A lot of planning still took place, but of course it wasn't the same scope as moving to and working from a different country. We sold a fair amount of our belongings, donated to Goodwill, and stored the remaining items. We took care of the house honey-do list that we'd been stalling on and made some home modifications to accommodate all of our cute new guests.
We sold 2 cars and bought a new one, and then spent time figuring out how to cram our life into several Costco bins. We did a few dry runs, and at the very last minute bought a cargo carrier that we really couldn't have lived without. And when I say last minute, I drove about an hour round trip during lunch in the middle of a work week after calling around to find one. For all the success we had getting everything in the car during our dry runs, we would add a few things here and there and ended up very happy with the purchase and extra storage. We also had to figure out our remote work plan, which we'll detail in another video, but we did a lot of research on how we can most effectively work from anywhere and tested our purchases beforehand. Speaking of working from anywhere, we've been using furnishedfinder.com to find places and typically look in the 3 to 4 month range for our stays. When we first started looking in 2022, we found a vacation rental site in San Diego through Furnished Finder, and we've actually used them twice now, and we'll include a link below. I use the desktop app most of the time, but they also have an app that's useful for searching and messaging. Furnished Finder doesn't back anything, so it's not like Airbnb where you are under contract as soon as you commit. So it takes some extra vetting to make sure the place actually exists. Everyone we've worked with has their own form of a contract, usually one that's specific to that state. Finding the vacation rental site the first time around gave us some added security, which was nice, but we haven't had any issues overall. We usually use the booking request feature, and then if we hear back, the first thing we do is set up a video chat, or at least a phone call. We also tell them up front that we have references from previous places we've stayed, and that we are renting out our own home, hopefully providing some comfort that will take care of their place. There's also a feature to send out booking requests to the masses, which is nice if you aren't getting any responses, but that's also when you get some random messages back. Just like sending an email at work, not everyone reads the details, and on top of that, we'll get emails asking us to fill out a form, which is usually a big red flag for scams. We've used that a couple of times, and even with the unwanted responses, it's a good option. We found the place in San Diego with about 2 months notice, and at that time it was quite a ways down our list of places, but it ended up being pretty perfect, and on our second trip back really fell in love with Pacific Beach. Along with using a vacation rental company, we've also found an owner of an apartment complex who started using one of their units for short-term rentals, and we've also rented out from a retired couple who had owned their own beachfront condo in Myrtle Beach, and a young woman in the Tampa area who moved for work and just wanted to rent out her first house.
We've come up with a bit of a checklist of must-haves while vetting a rental, such as confirming we have the rental to ourselves, utilities are included in the rent, parking is available and included, laundry facilities are in the unit or on site, and Wi-Fi is dedicated. Sometimes it can be hard to determine if rentals are shared spaces and if they have Wi-Fi for only the specific unit we're renting, so we've made a point to inquire further in these areas. Overall, we've had to keep an open mind about finding a rental, as we would fall in love with a few places and either wouldn't hear back from them or they would be already booked. I don't think we've gotten our first choice, or maybe even our fifth choice, but we've loved each place we've stayed. Thankfully, we've only had one time the landlord needed to back out of an already signed lease. They were super nice about it, and we wound up finding a great place in record time. We learned to book out as far as possible, especially when snowbirding in Florida or Arizona, or spending the fall in New England.
So that's our short and sweet intro to our digital nomading adventures. Until we meet again during our traveling adventures.
Bye for now from AZ Digital Nomads.